For over 20 years, he was the man who decided what North Koreans were allowed to see and what they were never allowed to think. Then one January night, the regime broadcast something that shattered even him. A state-produced film depicting a suicide bombing assassination attempt against Kim Jong-un himself. What he saw didn't just shock him, it set him free. This is the story of a propaganda insider who read the regime's own fear between the frames and chose to escape. If these stories matter to you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring these untold stories to light. Together, we can be a voice for those who cannot speak. I used to work for a government institution near Pyongyang. I'd rather not say exactly which department, not here, not now. But to put it simply, my job was to review films and broadcast materials produced by the state and to oversee how they were distributed. In short, I worked in propaganda, more than 20 years in that business. You develop a sense for things. The moment a video starts, you know what it's for, why a particular scene was placed, where it was, what's hiding behind a line of dialogue. It becomes instinct, an occupational hazard, you might say. It was the evening of January 3rd, bitter cold that night. Pyongyang winters are always harsh, but that day, the wind cut straight into your face on the walk home. I got back to find the apartment heat barely working. My wife was in the kitchen making dinner. The kids were in their room doing homework. I put on thick socks and sat down at the table. Nothing remarkable about that evening. Cold rice, a bowl of soup, but at least the day was over. That quiet relief was enough. The sound of dishes filled the kitchen as I turned on the television. Korea Central TV. Not much point in flipping channels, they're all the same. But out of habit, that's where I landed. The screen lit up and a film was already playing. No announcement, no preview. That wasn't unusual. Programming got reshuffled from the top all the time. I still remember the title. I won't say it here, it wouldn't mean anything out of context. On its face, it sounded like just another heroic story. But the opening was different. State propaganda films always start the same way. Swelling music, bright visuals, rising emotion. The greatness of the leader, the unity of the people, that was the formula. I had spent decades inside that formula. I could have recognized it with my eyes closed. This film opened in darkness. Low and muted music, a blue-gray night scene, a dim warehouse somewhere in an alley. Someone was assembling something. The camera pushed in close on the hands. Slow, deliberate movements connecting pieces. You couldn't see what it was yet, but the atmosphere said everything. I set down my chopsticks. The food was still in front of me. My appetite was gone. I couldn't look away. My wife came in from the kitchen. "What are you doing?" "Finish eating." I said, "Yeah, give me a sec." She glanced at the screen and sat down beside me. The camera returned to those hands. And then there it was, a vest, something stitched densely across every inch of it. The figure picked it up and pulled it on. A suicide vest. The room went quiet. Whatever sounds had been coming from the kitchen, from the kids' room, gone. Not that they stopped. I just stopped hearing them. There was only the screen. And in that moment, after more than 20 years in this work, something in me went cold. This film was never supposed to air. The film flashed back in time. The palette shifted, washed out, almost monochrome. A year appeared in the corner of the screen. The production design was unmistakably period. This was a story from the era of General Secretary Kim Jong-il. A long time ago. The plot unfolded like this. There had been a plot to assassinate the leader during a public procession. A faction had learned the route in advance and planted explosives along the path. The plan came within inches of succeeding. The film laid it out in detail: operatives in position, coded communications, a hand gripping a detonator, tightly edited, built for tension. And in the middle of it all, a family is destroyed. A security officer, a father, is killed on duty. A child appears on screen, kneeling before the father's body, the camera held on that face. Tears tracked silently down the child's cheeks. The lips were pressed shut, not a sound. My wife said quietly, "Poor thing." That one sentence released something in the room. She was right. It was heartbreaking. And the moment you feel that, the moment a story breaks your heart, it starts to feel safe. A sad story, an old story, history. I let myself think that for a moment. Most people watching would have. North Korean films always follow the same arc. A threat emerges, a crisis unfolds, someone sacrifices everything, and then a hero saves the country. That's been the structure for decades. Every film from childhood on down. People were conditioned to feel the tension, then breathe. So they exhaled. This was Kim Jong-il's era, something that happened long ago. The plot failed, the leader survived, and here we all are. The distance of history was enough to let people relax. Even I settled in for a while. But I'm someone who spent a long time in this business. Hundreds of films reviewed, analyzed, cleared, or rejected. And if there's one thing those years burned into me, it's this. North Korean films never stay in the past. It doesn't matter what era they're set in, what historical event they depict. What they're really saying is always about now, today, the lesson for today, the warning for today. That is the grammar of this country's cinema. I had never seen an exception. Not once in all those years. So I didn't relax. The child grew up. That same child reappeared on screen as an adult, hardened, steady. He had buried the memory of his father, joined the organization, completed his training, carried out his missions. The classic hero's arc. And then he was given a new assignment. The screen darkened again. The music dropped. That opening scene came back to me, the vest, those assembling hands. I leaned forward. Something was coming. I didn't know what yet, but 20 years of instinct was telling me, this film has no intention of staying in the past. The film was nearly over. The grown hero was in position somewhere in the dark. No music, no ambient sound. Just a man at a window watching, waiting, eyes locked on something across the glass. The camera panned down slowly. Something in his hand, small, black, a detonator. The camera pulled back to take in his full frame. The vest, the same one from the opening, scene packed with explosives, strapped tight across his chest. The hand holding the detonator moved. Slowly, deliberately, the thumb descended toward the button. I held my breath. A caption appeared at the bottom of the screen, a date, a location. May 14, 2024, Janwi Street Inauguration Ceremony. I read it once, blinked, read it again. This year, not the past, not history. A few months ago, my body went rigid. The camera cut to the street outside the window. A ceremony. Crowds packed in tight, all eyes aimed toward the center. And then, surrounded by a wall of security, a figure walked into frame. The camera didn't zoom in on his face. It didn't have to. The gate, the build, the protective formation. Anyone who had ever lived in North Korea would have known instantly Kim Jong-un. The target of the film's assassination plot was the current leader. The thumb continued its descent toward the button. Slow, no music, no sound at all. Just silence and that thumb moving closer. And then the film stopped. One breath before detonation. One frame before the button was pressed. The screen just went black. No credits, no closing music, nothing. The room was absolutely still. My wife said nothing. I said nothing. I wasn't even sure when she had started watching beside me. We both just stared at the black screen. Outside, the wind knocked against the window. A long moment passed before she finally spoke. What? Her voice was barely above a whisper. What was that supposed to mean? Not really a question. More like something spoken by someone whose mind had gone somewhere else entirely. I had no answer. I had no words at all. Let me put this in terms you might understand. Imagine a state-produced drama airing on national television in your country depicting a suicide bombing attempt against the president in graphic detail, and then cutting to black at the moment of detonation. No resolution, no explanation. That is what happened here. And this wasn't an accident. In North Korea, nothing reaches the airwaves by mistake. Nothing gets broadcast without approval. Someone wrote it, someone reviewed it, someone scheduled it, someone in authority signed off. Every single step. What aired on purpose, which meant this was intentional. I sat in front of that television long after the screen went dark, turning that thought over in my mind. A question I had never once asked in more than 20 years surfaced and wouldn't leave. Why are they showing us this? Sleep didn't come. I lay still, eyes closed. But behind my eyelids, the film kept playing. That frozen frame, the hand, the caption, May 14, 2024, Janwi Street. Past 2 in the morning, still nothing. My wife's breathing was steady beside me. I turned quietly and stared at the ceiling. Dark and empty, but my eyes went there anyway. I tried to think it through. As you may know, speaking of an attack on the leader in North Korea isn't just forbidden, it's unthinkable. Not even as a joke over drinks. Not even as a thought you let show on your face. In a country where saying the leader's name too casually is a punishable offense, the concept of depicting violence against him simply should not exist. If you want a measure of how absolute that taboo is, consider what happened in 2014. An American studio announced it was making a comedy film about assassinating Kim Jong-un. Word reached us through internal channels. North Korea hacked that studio's entire network in response. The incident became an international incident. The film barely got a release. Over a privately produced comedy from a foreign country, this regime launched a cyber attack to stop it from reaching the public. And now the same regime had made that film itself. Not a foreign studio, not private citizens, the state. Produced by a government institution, broadcast on state television, aired nationwide. A suicide bomber in a vest, walking toward the current leader, thumb on the detonator. None of it added up. I went through every explanation I could construct. Was this designed to intensify hatred of the enemy? Then there was no reason to put the current leader in the crosshairs. Was it meant to strengthen loyalty and protective instincts? Perhaps, but this method was far too dangerous. There was no logical reason to show an operative closing in on the leader, step by step in that kind of detail. No reason to plant that image in people's minds, which left one explanation. This wasn't propaganda. This was a warning. Something had been detected. A real threat existed, or someone believed one was forming. And this film was a signal broadcast to that threat, or to everyone who might become one we already know. That thought settled into my chest like something cold. I was just a man who had gone home, eaten dinner, and turned on the television. And now that fact alone that I had watched this film, that something in me had responded to it, felt like exposure. What if that response leaked out of this room? What would happen then? In this country, you learn to hide your own thoughts. I had always known that. I had lived it my entire life. But that night, the weight of it was different. It sat in the center of my chest and didn't move until morning. The film's mastermind was America. Of course it was. In North Korean cinema, the enemy is always America. Japan, the South Korean puppets. That formula hasn't changed in decades. I learned it in school. I reinforced it at work. Every film, every newspaper, every broadcast, I had lived inside that framework without ever questioning it. It was planted too deep, too early. But something was different this time. I replayed the film in my mind. Yes, the handler behind the plot was foreign. Yes, the manipulation came from outside. But who was wearing the vest? Whose hand was on the detonator? Whose face, whose body, whose life was it standing in that crowd? A Korean, our language, our clothes, our soil. The order may have come from outside, but the one pressing the button was someone from the inside. Once that thought entered, it wouldn't leave. It meant there was someone like that inside this country. Or more precisely, the state itself had acknowledged it was possible. No matter how many layers of foreign manipulation they wrote into the script, the person walking into that ceremony with a vest of explosives was unmistakably one of their own. Ordinary people understood this. They don't say it out loud, but they feel it. You who lived through the Korean War would know this feeling. The same blood, the same lineage, and yet guns pointed at each other. North Koreans carry that history too. Heard it from their fathers, their grandfathers. They know in their bones that internal fracture is more dangerous than any foreign enemy. That's why this film was so frightening. When the enemy is out there, you can unify against it. Point your anger in one direction, together. But if the one strapping on the bomb might be standing right next to you, then the person standing right next to you becomes the enemy. Is that person loyal? Is their devotion real? Are they harboring something? Once that suspicion spreads, a community collapses from within. That might have been exactly the point. Make people watch each other. Make them doubt each other. Make sure no one dares make the first move. After that broadcast, the atmosphere at our weekly self-criticism sessions changed completely. For those unfamiliar, these sessions called Sangwal, Chonghwa Life Review meetings happen every week. Colleagues gather, confess their own shortcomings, and report on each other's. Think of it as something like an old-style neighborhood watch meeting, except the stakes couldn't be more different. If someone reports that you looked dissatisfied or let something suspicious slip, there's no coming back from that. Those sessions got longer after the film aired. One day, a colleague was called out. The offense was minor, he had muttered under his breath about the food ration being late again. Someone nearby heard him. He hadn't complained loudly. He hadn't confronted anyone. Just a tired man letting out a sound. He didn't come in the next morning. Nobody asked where he went. Asking was its own kind of risk. The desk was empty. Days passed. He never came back. That was all. After that, I understood. Frustration was no longer just frustration. Saying the rations were late, saying the heat didn't work, those weren't complaints anymore. They were potential evidence. The enemy wasn't only outside. It could be the colleague in the next seat, the person listening. The moment you believe that, your mouth closes. And the moment your mouth closes, you start to disappear a little more each day. Days passed. I went to work. I came home. I ate dinner with my family, told the kids goodnight. On the surface, nothing had changed. But inside, that film kept circling. I couldn't shake it. In the middle of ordinary tasks, that frozen frame would surface without warning. The screen cut to black, one breath before detonation. One night I sat alone and walked through the film again from the beginning. Scene by scene. The dark warehouse. The vest. The operative in position. The crowd. The caption. The date. The location. John Wee Street. When I first saw that caption, the date had seized all my attention. 2024, this is happening now. This is not the past, the shock of that had overwhelmed everything else. But days later, the location surfaced again. Why John Wee Street? For those who don't know, John Wee Street was constructed by the Youth Shock Brigade, tens of thousands of young people who reportedly worked day and night to complete it in record time. The loyalty of youth, the devotion of youth, the passion of youth, that's the official story. The leader came in person to commend them. He held the completion ceremony there. It is, in the country's public symbolism, the very embodiment of what young people represent. That street was where the assassination was set. A chill moved through me. At first, I thought the location was simply chosen because the leader holds frequent public events there. That part was true, but the more I thought about it, the less that seemed to be the whole answer. Why choose the street that symbolizes youth loyalty? Setting a terrorist attack on the leader at that specific location, wasn't that a coded admission that something had cracked inside that very symbol? That among the young people who built that street with their own hands, or among the generation meant to carry that spirit forward, there was a threat? My back went cold. Everything the regime feared was contained in that single choice of location. Not the elderly, not the generation that had already given their lives to the system, not the people who had been shaped by decades inside it. What the regime truly feared was the young. It made sense when you thought about it. Young people are different now. Smartphones have opened channels to outside information that simply didn't exist before. Chinese dramas, South Korean content, glimpses of the outside world, all of it circulating quietly on USB drives. The adults know how far it has spread. They pretend not to, but the young people grew up on it. They make comparisons. They ask questions. Why do we live this way? Why do they live like that? Questions like that accumulate. Enough questions become an awakening, and an awakened youth is what they were afraid of. I thought of my own children. They were young now, but they would grow up. They would become that generation. What kind of world were they growing into? One where you have to prove your loyalty to survive? One where asking questions is dangerous? One where you build a street with your own hands and still get treated as a suspect? The next threat is the youth. That's what this country believed about itself. And in that moment, with absolute clarity, I knew I could not hand my children's future to this place. After that film aired, I spent many nights unable to sleep. Long hours staring at the ceiling, listening to my wife's breathing, checking for silence from the kids' room, thinking alone in the dark. Thoughts came and went, but they always circled back to the same place. Why did this regime make that film? It demanded loyalty. It called for the protection of the leader at all costs. But at the same time, it revealed something else entirely. The regime was afraid. It knew the cracks were there, and it was willing to go this far to hold things together. Strong things don't do that. If you're truly unshakable, you don't need a film like that. A regime certain that no one is resisting doesn't broadcast a film that puts the image of resistance into people's minds. And yet they did. A man in a suicide vest walking up to the leader, a thumb above a detonator, aired nationwide, not from strength, or from fear. The moment that landed, something I had kept locked for a long time shifted. This system looked different to me now. Not monolithic and unbreakable, but something holding itself together from the inside, afraid of what it was holding back. And then I understood what the film had really asked me. Is there truly no one who resists? The film demanded loyalty. But embedded inside that demand was the question itself. Because if no one resisted, there would be no reason to make the film. That question flew across the screen and found me. I stood in front of it for a long time. One night when the kids were asleep, I said it to my wife directly. No circling around it. I just said it, I want to leave. She sat with that for a while. I didn't push. The ticking of the clock. Then quietly she said, for the children's sake, if nothing else, we have to try. That was the moment the decision was made. The preparation took a long time. There were close calls. The details aren't something I can fully share here. Not all of our family made it out together. There are people I left behind. When I think about them, the words stop coming. So I'll stop here for today. I still remember the moment I first set foot on South Korean soil. A volunteer greeted me in Korean. Same language, but it wasn't quite the same. Different intonation, different words. And yet it didn't feel foreign. Something in the sound was the same at the root. That recognition, for no reason I could name, made me cry. A few days later, I went to a supermarket for the first time. The shelves were full. Every row, every aisle just full. I didn't know what to reach for. I stood there frozen while people around me pushed their carts past without a second thought. Then without warning, my eyes filled with tears. I couldn't have explained it then. I can now. I had come from a world where none of this was ordinary. And here it was, ordinary all of it. Sometimes, even now, that final frame comes back to me. The screen frozen at the edge of detonation. Total silence. I've come to believe that silence was the regime's most honest confession, not a show of strength, but an admission of fear. Not certainty that no one would resist, but the dread that someone might. They made a film that put resistance into people's imaginations. Because they couldn't be sure resistance wasn't already there. The film demanded loyalty. And in the end, it set me free. The people I left behind in the North, I miss them every day. I don't know when reunification will come, but living in that country taught me something I carry with me now. That people can live by belief, not by fear. That morning comes even when you haven't proven your devotion. I didn't know that until I came here. You have lived inside that truth from the beginning. Please don't forget how precious that is.